Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. I am generally a very smiley person, but I'm smiling a little bit larger today. But I would never, ever rub it in one of my favorite people's faces because he's exceptional at taking things like this. So it actually takes away the fun of making fun of the Phillies. But, John, I feel bad for you.
I didn't sleep.
Yeah.
That's how bad it was. Yeah, I saw a really interesting Twitter post. I have it right here. I'll read it because it basically says how I feel, and it says Philadelphia sports should be classified as mental terrorism.
Can I? We're a minute in, so we'll spend a minute or two on this. But can I give you my theory on the Phillies?
Sure.
Thank you. I was a season ticket holder for the Washington Capitals for 12 years, and the Caps won the cup in my 12th year, and Alex Ovechkin is a phenomenal hockey player, but I don't think he's really a winner. And I don't think that Bryce Harper is really a winner in the sense of the winners that you and I want people to be. Team players, we got this. I think Bryce is going to win a World Series. I really do, just like Ovi won one. But I don't think they're going to be the type that wins over and over again. It's going to be lightning in a bottle for the Phillies. They're going to win it one year not because of Bryce, but because they're going to put those little pieces around him. They're going to get those big hits, timely hits.
Well, I mean, you've said a lot there, and I don't know how much time we have. The stats don't back up what you're saying. Bryce was one of the only in the last couple of years of the playoff. Unbelievable OPS, unbelievable batting average, unbelievable hits in clutch situations. So it's not about Bryce. I think that he is a winner. I think that he is everything that Philadelphia sports represents, putting it all out there, really being devastated on when you lose, being so fired up when you win. But yeah, you can't have a $500 million payroll or 2 runs in 2 important games. So that's really what it was all about. Go Birds.
Moving on, right? Moving on.
That's all I can say.
It does kind of what we were just discussing, which Brent, our good friend, is quick to point out. I say, let's not discuss sports, and the first thing we do is discuss sports. But it does kind of dovetail nicely, which is one of my least favorite business terms, which I learned at the Franklin Institute. It was used by my boss. He used to say dovetail all the time, and I thought that is such a bullshit term.
Yeah.
It does dovetail nicely here. We're going to talk about 2 different things in the time that we have today, which I think you have only 25 more minutes, correct? You're hard.
Yeah.
Cool. Imposter syndrome, and then kind of recognizing that, and then how to be able to sell with your education, business, whatever it is, platform solution, without feeling icky or salesy. And I stuck with those words. Those are the words of my coach, Tony. And it really bugs me to say the word icky, but it actually drives home the point. So first things first, imposter syndrome. You're no Bryce Harper, but you are John Gamba.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody, Gamba this, Gamba that.
Oh, yeah.
What's your relationship with imposter syndrome?
A very close relationship with it, because I also have suffered, just being vulnerable and humble, from a little bit of, people won't believe this, a little bit of social anxiety, a little bit of just being really hard on myself. And I think everybody's hard on themselves. And I also think that entrepreneurship isn't for the faint of heart. So whether it's a speaking engagement, whether it's a big presentation, you always want to do well, and you always want to shine. And sometimes when you really want to do well and you have high standards and you have high expectations, it's easy to fall into imposter syndrome and say, I am not enough. And you just really have to convince yourself that you are prepared, that you are enough, and that you'll do your best. And nobody fucking cares anyway. No, no, but I kind of do mean that sometimes, when I get myself riled up, and then I come out of the situation, whether it was great or it wasn't so great, it was really, the anticipatory anxiety is always worse than the actual situation that you're in. So deep breaths and, have courage, recognize that this isn't for the faint of heart, and give yourself a break,
Mm-hmm.
try to take the gloves off and not beat yourself up too bad. But yeah, I definitely still suffer from it, and it tends to get me on big speaking engagements, stages, panel discussions that are pretty big, conversations with my wife.
Yeah. I've seen you, and we have to talk about this on the side here. I've seen you express that a little bit and show that a little bit when we were in Monterrey, Mexico, and you were up there on the big screen talking. And by the way, that conference is coming up in January, so hopefully you've been invited again and we can go again. But I saw that. Let me ask you, have you ever had... I had my bouts with imposter syndrome. I still have them, of course. When I started my tutoring company, I had no business being in the education space except having had a lot of tutors. I have experienced a couple times recently kind of the opposite, where I feel so prepared and so ready to close this deal that I think I come out with too much energy and firing, and the majority of the times I don't get those deals. I'm not able to close those deals. Have you had that kind of the opposite feeling where you're so prepared and so excited that you're almost too amped up, and that you just, people are like, whoa, what's this dude on?
Yeah, no, I have. I've had some of those. I do think that you have to go into situations though with a lot of energy, and an air that you care. But I do think that some of that can cross a line into being too eager. And then sometimes being too eager can cross into being icky.
Yeah.
I'll also say this is a really great saying that I was taught by a great mentor of mine, and that is really important. Expectations are resentments waiting to happen. So when you are so prepared, go in expecting to close that deal versus expecting to have a great experience and being received however you're going to be received, and then letting go of the results. I think that that's a better philosophy, and that's a better approach. Because if you have such expectations because you did over prepare and you did do your homework and you did go in there saying, I'm going to close this freaking thing, and you don't, that's when you get into resentments. Oh, they just didn't get it. They didn't understand. I didn't do well. And that's when the imposter syndrome can creep back in and create some paralysis on executing well.
This seems like a very
maybe
good
that's
time.
what happened to Trey Turner. I don't know.
I want Trey to be the Backstrom to his Ovi. Trey's a good dude. And I'm obviously very intimately familiar with those guys. But listen, a couple things. We're going to have our chance to talk all about sports. You and I are running in a race, which our mutual friend Devin Shane said, how far is the race? It's a marathon? I'm like, nah, dude, it's 5K. But we're running in a 5K, not this Saturday, but next Saturday, in honor of the red bandana. So Ken, if you can throw the red bandana links in the chat there. If anybody is in Boston, that's Saturday the 19th. My good friend Kevin Skinner will be joining us, John. That's breaking news for you. We did get a hotel room by Fenway. which will be
Oh,
fun for
wow.
all of us.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
we went all in. So if anybody's up in Boston on the 19th, feel free to join us for the Red Bandana Race. It's a really interesting story, and we're really pumped about running in that. Another little plug here. You now see on your screen the Catalyst QR code. So, John, can you talk about Catalyst, please?
Yeah, so Catalyst is our innovation center, and as part of the programming that we provide, meetups, boot camps, entrepreneur and residence hours, we also have our virtual accelerator called Catapult. And the Catapult virtual accelerator connects entrepreneurs to learning resources, strategic advisors, researchers, and practitioners in the education community. It's the first and only 100% fully virtual accelerator. We do have an advanced membership for anybody who wants to get an assessment of their business, and then access to 4 targeted lanes of acceleration that are self-paced and standalone. Leadership, product market, and fundraising. A lot of great resources. In fact, some of the resources and some of the guidance that we're going to talk about today, imposter syndrome and selling without feeling icky, are embedded there. So if you want to go deeper, feel free to get engaged with the advanced membership. I'll be your guide holistically, and you'll have access to strategic advisors in each of those lanes of acceleration. So it's out there. We'd love to have you. We've had over 100 entrepreneurs go through it with incredible rave reviews. If you're not quite sure if it's for you, I can send you and reach out to me, and I can send some testimonials and some references of those who have gone through it, and so far have loved it.
Cool, man. And if you want to go deeper with me and John, I'll just leave that there. Feel free to in the chat.
Yeah.
All the chats. We're on Facebook. We're on LinkedIn, Instagram. Just send your questions our way, and we'll be happy to answer them. So what we're going to talk about now, because we've covered a little bit of imposter syndrome, John, can you make the link for everybody between imposter syndrome, so not feeling like you're supposed to be there potentially, to how not to sell in an icky or salesy way?
Yeah, and you've some of the backdrop and some of the training and some of the advice you've already provided, Josh, I think are square on. And I really was thinking about this before coming on and being a little bit having to get off sooner. But I think it's 3 things as I was taking my notes and thinking about it in my career as an active entrepreneur, and also as a direct salesperson earlier on in my career, selling direct to school districts. And I really see it as 3 things. One is I think it's really important right out of the gate. An antidote to icky is finding common ground. I can remember in a lot of the big sales presentations, I would come in and talk about how education was in my DNA or in my genes. If I'm in a room full of educators who are going to make decisions on my education product, it's probably a good idea to be able to relate to those people in the room with things like, my mom was a community college professor, my sister was a Montessori teacher, my dad was a school board director, and I've been working in the education space for over 30 years. Love what I do, feel like it's a purpose-fulfilled job. Instantly you've gone from trying to sell them something to trying to relate and find some common ground on the vocation, as I call it, of teaching and learning. So that's number 1. Number 2 is something you alluded to earlier, Josh, I think is really important, and that is preparation and knowledge sells. So if you go in there and you are talking about something that they can relate to, related to their strategic plan, whether they're a principal or a superintendent or a cabinet member, and you can say, we know that social emotional learning or mental health or competency-based math or literacy is a strategic driver or a strategic element of your strategic plan, and be conversant about that, and then start to align that to your product or service. I think that really disarms them as well, that you've taken the time to think about them, think about what's important to them, and think about what's kind of bubbled up in their strategic plan. That's always helpful. Creates a sense of humility. It creates builds on that sense of common ground. And I think the last point, and I talk a lot about this on this show, is metrics matter and research matters. I think when the classic case of icky comes across as you're making claims and you're making bold statements, but you can't back it up with footnotes and research and substantiation, I think that really hurts you. So it's common ground. I think it's knowledge and really understanding the requirement and being prepared by knowing what's important to that district, that prospect, that principal. And then once you actually get into your product or service, if you could substantiate it with research, with evidence, with tangible ways that the outcomes of whatever you're providing can be measured and presented, I think that's really helpful.
Okay, I agree. So common ground, if I can react here on common ground, I think my approach was always, and I think this happens to be because I was the baby of the family. One sister went to Harvard, one went to Amherst, and I always relied on humor. So in terms of common ground, I always would use humor. And I think I still do, especially telling people, like I just said, I didn't have a place in the education space, except that I had a lot of tutors growing up. So that's why I knew what a good tutor was. Mm-hmm. Prep and knowledge, I'm with you on that one. And I think that has been emphasized a lot. And I know our friend who's listening here, Brent Newton, is using that more and more as he goes out and talks to school districts and principals to be able to relate what he can do for them based on what they already want, the outcomes that they have already told people they want. Metrics matter, though. I want to ask you about that again, because not everybody has metrics. Mm-hmm. So what do people do who don't necessarily have metrics? For example, our friend Lynette Bauman, who was in one of our cohorts, who's got a great reading platform, who's been a reading specialist for decades and has started this amazing platform, but doesn't have the metrics at this point to talk to.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think that there's a very simple way to respond to that, and that is if you don't have enough tangible or empirical evidence that your product or service works, I would not be in heavy sales mode. First of all, I would be in a lot of piloting, a lot of testing, a lot of co-creation, co-construction. So I'd be sensitive about selling before you're ready to be able to present that there is some evidence of effectiveness. But even if you have some anecdotes and you're now out selling, there's a big difference between the research basis of your product and service and the evaluative model by which you're measuring your product or service. So in the case of a literacy solution, I'm sorry, what was the name of the entrepreneur? Lynette may want to say, well, we have a platform that is based on the science of reading. And we now know, bullet, foundational or underlying research that phonemic awareness or science of reading or phonics, structured literacy, and the list goes on in terms of where we are with the science of reading, actually works. And being able to cite some of that evidence and saying that we're based on the latest or the most seminal research on phonics and how young students learn to read, I think is important. You're going to be in a common language and you're going to be able to cite the research that's utilized to be able to substantiate your value proposition. Now, as you know, Josh, I also give a talk on entrepreneurial mindset and what I've learned as an entrepreneur. And I think there's one more important point here too, because I always ask, what is the most important part of your PowerPoint deck, your presentation? And I always have students and young entrepreneurs raise their hand and they say, the competitive analysis, right? The financials, absolutely. And I always say, the most important part of your presentation is your footnotes, and really thinking about if you're making a claim on the product or service that you have out there, what is the foundational or the underlying research that you've been able to cite that substantiates or supports what you're selling? And that could be mental health, and that could be literacy, it could be math, but I think that's really important and really also disarms prospective buyers that you're coming at this from both the foundational underlying research that's supporting your logic model and the evaluation piece that you're putting into play to say, if you buy this, I'm going to be able to show you that it works. And if I can't convince you that I'm going to be able to show you, then don't buy it.
Yeah.
That's a really good presentation. That's a really good value proposition. And if you have both working in sequence, I think I like your chances in terms of at least getting them to consider having a business relationship with you.
John Gamba says common ground, prep knowledge, metrics matter. Some of the points that I want to make, and you can certainly react, would be get fully sold on yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you got to believe in yourself and your offerings, maybe not over believe, which I said I've done a few times, I think. You've got to confidently communicate that to the world. I wonder if that's creeping into Bryce's mind, but communicate your value clearly. You know, this is not sales pitches. This is not boring presentations. In our world, this could be the signature solution. You know, when I do, when I meet with new potential clients and I walk them through the signature solution, I always tell them, I said, at the end of this discussion, I want you to be able to say, I could work with this guy. I understand how he can help me. And then we're just going to talk time and money, which are two things I can't control. So means I have clearly communicated the value. Become a thought leader in your tribe. LinkedIn. You know, and it doesn't have to be LinkedIn post every single day. Spend time just commenting, just lifting other people up and bringing new thoughts to what they have brought to the world. Focus on authentic connections. I do not believe in spammy outreach. I do believe in targeted outreach, which AKA is cold outreach. I believe in doing that on LinkedIn and via email, but no spam. I do not believe in spam. It's not worth it whatsoever. And we can have long talks about how it can actually hurt your personal reputation and your domain reputation for your email. And when you do those things, you will stop chasing and you will start attracting. And I have been lucky enough to attract the right people over and over and over again who have joined. And now I changed the QR code there, our Ed Sales Elevation Experience group, where we're all, I've said this and I'll say it again. We've had 97 companies go through the Ed Sales Elevation Experience. I would have a beer with every single one of them because they're all great people and they're all really doing their best to build their own business and support one another. So I'll recap for you. Fully sold, communicate value, become a thought leader, focus on authentic connections. What do you think?
I'm going to pick one out of them because I think they're all really important and really well thought out, Josh. And that is the thought leadership piece, because this is a kind of a one for me. I have to ask or challenge you. Why is it important to become a thought leader? And then I'll give you a little nugget of perspective that really helped me. Why is thought leadership important?
In our world, a lot of people that I come across are people who have tried slow burn methods in the education space. Slow burn methods means they've been to a conference and it didn't give them the ROI. They bought a list and it didn't give them the ROI. You know, they took a course, they didn't get the ROI. Mm-hmm. So what I believe in is owning and running your own lead generation machine, which means you are sending messages to people cold, email and or LinkedIn. When they receive those well thought out messages, and we can teach people how we do that, the first thing they're probably going to do is look up your name. Mm-hmm. I truly forgot I had a website. I rely so much on LinkedIn. So much of what I think and do and my interactions and what I believe is on LinkedIn. So when people receive an email from somebody they don't know and they go and look me up on LinkedIn, they see not only my credibility, but they see people like you who I'm associated with. Mm-hmm. And so that's why I believe LinkedIn and credibility is so darn important, because I believe credibility sells overnight. That being said, it is tough. I have it in my schedule every single day to spend 30 minutes, like the gym, on LinkedIn, where I learn and I also participate. Does that answer your question?
It does. And it's a great answer. I'll also build on that a little bit. When I'm looking up people and trying to find out if they're an organization or a partner or someone I want to work with, I do go to their websites and I go right to the blog. There's usually a blog. And when I see that the last time they wrote an article was 3 years ago, I roll my eyes a little bit. And it's not so much that I want to know that they're current, it's that I want to know that they're challenging themselves to be a thought leader. I'll give you an example. We did an article last year. I wrote an article on EdSurge regarding entrepreneurial support organizations in the ed tech world. And I have to tell you, Josh, I could spin a lot of this just right off the cuff. But when I'm forced, representing a major research university, to write an article that's going to be read and reviewed and commented on and fact checked, if you will, by tens and maybe hundreds of thousands of people, I better be on my game. I better be able to cite evidence. I better not make claims that people are going to challenge. It's going to have my dean walk in my door and say, "What are you doing here at the university that was founded by Ben Franklin, where you can't mess around with citations and you can't mess around with ChatGPT?" So I think it really is important in terms of thought leadership to challenge yourself to be seminal, challenge yourself to be on the cutting edge, to be on the forefront of your field, being able to draft and demonstrate that thought leadership through coherent shares, through coherent posts, through coherent blog posts, because I think that lends credibility and that forces you to stay ahead. And when you're ahead, you're not icky.
And one interesting thing, I'll defend the people who potentially their websites look like they haven't written anything. We do keep our website up to date. Thank you, Ken, and thank you to the team. But I think hopefully there are more and more people who are trending towards updating LinkedIn on a daily basis rather than their website, which is, you got to go in there, you got to push publish and blah, blah, you got to put a picture there. So I encourage you that when you look those people up, to go to their blog and to their LinkedIn profile.
Yeah, I think both. I think ideally they'd be working in sync.
Yes.
But I too think that social media is probably more of a more relevant, more channel. And I don't mean whether it's social media or your website. It's anything. It's how you're representing yourself and how you're showing the world that you're staying current. And when I say this, I'm not saying because of the perception. I'm saying this because I think it makes you better when you're forced to put your words on paper and publish them. It forces you to be relevant and timely versus just kind of phoning in the same old, the same old thing.
Well, with potentially a minute left, we've just come full circle because a lot of the reasons that people fall off in the Ed Sales Elevation Experience in week 3 is we've really talked about ideal client. They've really begun to build out their headline and get proud of their LinkedIn profile. And now it's time to reach out to people and try and talk to them about their solution, their product, their platform. And when people don't respond, that means maybe you've got the wrong ideal client, or maybe your profile is not speaking to these people that you think are your ideal client. So we've gotten back to rejection and potentially imposter syndrome. So should I hit publish on this post? Because who am I to hit publish on this post? And one thing you said, there's not a magic bullet. It's all these things. It's being at conferences. It's posting. It's writing. And I was going to make a joke about this, but now that I think about it, it's also who you associate yourself with. Because a lot of times, hope it's okay for me to say this, you and I'll come across someone, I'll say, "Do you know this person?" Or you'll send me a link to somebody over text and say, "Do you know this person?" And so it also matters about how you treat people in the end. And so you don't have to be icky or salesy when you've been good to people. And I think that's something that you and I brought to the table separately and have locked in on for a very long time. That all of these things are important, blog posts and da 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 da. But at the end of the day, it's being good to people.
Yeah, I think the antonym of icky, the opposite, is authentic. And I can't tell you how many times, Josh, in terms of our sequences and sometimes finishing each other's sentences, all I have to do is send you a blurry picture of me with someone. And not only will you say, good dude, or she's really got it, or she has an it factor, but you'll share something authentically about that person that you wouldn't normally just know in a business relationship.
Yeah.
A setback that they may have had, a struggle that they're having personally. And not that I'm suggesting that you need to be in everybody's business personally, but there's an authenticity that comes across with a lot of the business relationships that you've developed, that's really powerful and I think is really important. And I think that some of your clients and partners and associates can learn from. I'll just make one more point on this idea of, the standards by which we move out of icky and into authentic and truly relevant and meaningful relationships. I was just thinking, because I'm working in the world of professional development for educators, and there are standards called the Learning Forward standards that if a district was going to adopt your professional learning solution, because we have a lot of entrepreneurs who are doing things in professional learning, and you probably do too. The Learning Forward standards are built on 4 pillars. If you're going to sell a professional learning solution into a school district, you must demonstrate that A, it's job embedded, B, that it's measurable, C, that it's sustained over time, right? The signature solution. You can't just do 1, 2, and stop. You got to sustain the practice over time, and then it's collaborative. It's done in a cohort where whatever you're doing is done with other people, because we know that collaboration leads to breakthroughs. Isn't that interesting that you could take the signature solution, you could take 3 experience, and create standards around that. And I bet that success would look like an adherence to all 4 of those standards, that it's job embedded, that you're practicing what you preach in actual learning settings, that it's measurable. We talked about that earlier. The metrics matter. That it's sustained over time, that you're not just one and done, sit and get, but it's sustained over time, and that it's collaborative. You're doing it with like-minded people who are in the education space. It's interesting that if you kind of apply some of those principles in how they're working and being coached by you, I think the entrepreneurs, founders that are connected to you will have a really great experience.
And being coached by you. And this is something that I wrestle with probably more than you do, in that a lot of people, again, Ed Sales Elevation Experience. I'm not Penn, and you aren't the Ed Sales Elevation Experience. So we're not competing with each other. We're hopefully complementing each other in what we're doing, and just being authentic with people out there, vulnerable, and hopefully people are enjoying this. Again, if you really want to enjoy it, come to Boston, run in the Red Bandana race. It's 5K, although I'll be debuting some new shoes, so I'm really excited about that.
There you go.
And I'm excited to be a part of the Red Bandana. It's the 20th anniversary, as you pointed out, and we'll be
the
posting
foliage, man, up there right now is insane too. So it's the beauty and the camaraderie and the community will be really, really cool.
We don't have much foliage down here, so I'm looking forward to that foliage and being with you and being with my friend Kevin. And anybody else who wants to join us, and appreciate everybody else joining us today. As promised, John, I got you out 30 minutes in.
Yeah. And by the way, not worrying about where's the TV, where do I go to watch the Phillies? I have to say, my liver thanks the Philadelphia Phillies. How about that?
I used to say that about the Caps. Like, I'm just happy that they're out because I can get back to my life.
Yeah, right.
So I'm sorry for you, but there is some serious discussions about teams. And when you look at the way teams are built, and this is a whole another discussion for another day, but like, are the Phillies built the right way to win?
Good to great. Who's on the bus? What a great book. I think you can apply a lot of those principles to how to develop the Philadelphia sports team. So we shall see. To be continued.
I will see you and talk to you sooner than that, but I'll see you up in Boston. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We will restream this at 11 o'clock Eastern on Sunday, which happens to be 2 hours before the Redskins face the Ravens, the battle of the Beltway.
Can you, as a person who represents a major research university, edit out the F-bomb? I think I dropped one in there. If you can.
It's way, way out in the world, but guess what? It's just you being authentic.
Yeah, I guess so. So
no
I have to watch that. I
syndrome.
apologize for that.
No, all good. Thank you for joining, everybody. We'll restream this. Appreciate it.